When a new CIO takes their new role, they have 90 days to really set the tone, much like a new president or a new elected official. But what are those things that a CIO needs to be aware of in their first 90 days on the job? That's what I want to talk about here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world reach their third stage of digital transformation success. And most of the new clients we work with involve CIOs that are in a new role. They've recently taken the role of CIO, maybe they've been promoted internally, or maybe they were brought from outside the organization. But in most cases, most of our clients involve a CIO who is new to the role. And much like an elected official, like a president or any sort of prime minister, they have the first 90 days to really set the tone for where their trajectory is going to go in their career and in their role. So what I want to do today is talk about the things that a new CIO should be aware of and provide sort of a playbook on how to get started as a new CIO. Now, if you're looking for other best practices to help you through your digital transformation, I encourage you to buy and read my new book called The Final Countdown: Digital Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation Success. This book is meant to be sort of a playbook to help you define a digital strategy that will help you get started, whether you're a new CIO or any sort of project team member involved in a digital transformation. The most successful CIOs I've known throughout my career are the ones that really understand the business strategy and the overall organizational strategy of the organization. They, of course, understand technology and emerging tech trends and things of that nature, but the best ones really know the business and the business strategy. More importantly, they know how to connect a business strategy and translate it into a digital transformation strategy and an overall technology roadmap. So one of the things that I think is most important for a new CIO is to really take the time to understand the business strategy. What is the organization doing now? And more importantly, what is the organization trying to do in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? And the overall goals and objectives and direction and the vision of the organization is ultimately what should set the tone and set the framework for how digital technologies can help enable the CIO's role. So as a new CIO, I wouldn't jump right into technology roadmaps and trying to evaluate potential technology options. I would first take the time to understand what the organizational strategy is, and then focus on translating that organizational strategy into a digital strategy and roadmap. In fact, I'll come back to how to do that here later in this video. Just as it's important to understand the overall organizational and business strategy of your organization, it's also important to engage your key business stakeholders. So in other words, it's important that you don't operate in a silo or in an IT world that's disconnected from the rest of the business. One of the most important things you can do is really start to build alliances with business stakeholders and business leaders throughout the organization. And I'm not talking about just your direct boss or whoever you're reporting up to. I'm talking about the COO, the CFO, the chief marketing officer, the finance and accounting team, the operations team, the manufacturing team, all the different stakeholders throughout the organization. You want to make sure you understand their lay of the land and their parts of their world so that ultimately you can understand what it is you have to work with. And more importantly, you have an army of people that you start to build that are supporting your initiatives, and it gives you a chance to really get aligned with those business stakeholders to ensure that whatever technology roadmap you might define has taken into account what the current state and the current lay of the land is, as well as what the future state business needs and objectives of the overall team are. So one of the first things that I would do if I were a new CIO is make sure that you're taking that time to understand the needs of and the priorities and the strategic focus of the various business stakeholders throughout your organization. In addition to understanding the people and the strategy of the organization in your new CIO role, it's also important to understand the culture of the organization. And culture is one of those things that's very powerful and it's very important to understand, but yet most organizations overlook culture, and more specifically, most CIOs tend to overlook culture. They tend to focus on the more tangible things because that's their skill set. They're more focused on processes and technology because you can see and touch and feel processes and technologies. But what you can't see and touch and feel is a lot like looking below the tip of the iceberg. The processes and technologies might represent the tip of the iceberg, but the culture of the organization is really the base of the iceberg and the part that's hardest to see. So you really need to understand what the culture is today and ultimately understand how the organization is trying to evolve and how you might bend that culture in the future, knowing that you're not going to change the culture overnight And even in your first few years, you might not change the culture materially, but you can start to bend the needle and move the culture in a certain direction that reflects the needs of the organization. And the reason culture is so important to CIOs is because not only is it important to understand that lay of the land so that you understand where pockets of resistance might reside within the organization, but also because the technology roadmap and the execution of that roadmap needs to reflect the culture of who you are and who your organization is. For example, if you're a very risk-adverse organization and you just don't deal well with change as a team or as a company, it may be that you don't necessarily want to go through a process of a big bang, quantum leap sort of digital transformation. It may mean that you need to take more of an incremental approach to technology adoption and technology implementation. On the other hand, if you're an aggressive company, you're used to change, you're a fast-moving organization, macroeconomic trends are forcing you as an organization to move quickly, then it may be that you're going to be more aggressive in your technology roadmap. But one of your biggest and most important roles as a new CIO is to understand that lay of the land culturally so that you can define a technology roadmap that helps you take into account today's culture as well as what the culture could be in the future. Another important first step as a new CIO is to understand the system landscape. In other words, what sorts of systems and technology infrastructures do you have in place now, and what is it you have to work with? What are the strengths and weaknesses of what's in place now? And it's always amazing to me how bigger organizations especially lose track of all the different systems they have, and there's a lot of black market sorts of systems that are out there being used under the radar that aren't necessarily supported by the overall organization, but there's systems out there that are being acquired every day or every week by different people within the organization, and they're using these different technologies to do their job. So oftentimes what a new CIO needs to do is to really untangle the web or understand the web of different systems and technologies that are out there, understand where the strengths are and where the opportunities for improvement are. And ultimately, you're not going to change all these systems overnight, or certainly not within your first 90 days, but what you can do in the first 90 days is really have a good understanding of what systems are there, what strengths you have, and what the priorities are, and the opportunities for improvement to potentially replace or improve some of those systems. Once you've done the things I've talked about so far in this video, which is to identify what the corporate strategy is, define some of the key stakeholders, understand the systems you have in place, understand the culture you have in place, now you can really start to shape and craft a digital strategy roadmap for how you will modernize the technology within your organization. And defining a digital strategy is really important because obviously it's setting the tone for the next 3 to 5 years of how you might start to modernize some of your technologies and deploy new technologies or new technology improvements to enhance the overall effectiveness of the organization. One of the frameworks I discuss in my new book called The Final Countdown is this digital strategy roadmap that I'm going to show you right here in the corner of the screen. And you can see in this digital strategy roadmap the different functions and the different work streams that should be a part of any digital strategy. So when you're defining your digital strategy, you want to make sure that it includes the overall strategic alignment. It addresses the process and operational side of the equation. It addresses the people and the organizational side of the equation. It also looks at enterprise applications and business intelligence. And then, of course, supporting the entire digital strategy roadmap is going to be the overall program management and the program governance for the transformation. So this digital strategy roadmap is a good starting point to give you some ideas on how to start defining those business processes and start defining what the overall roadmap is based on some of the inputs that you've defined in your first 90 days. And again, if you're looking to bring some of this digital strategy roadmap framework to life, I encourage you to read my new book called The Final Countdown, which you can purchase and read by scanning the QR code in front of you. And you can also go to thefinalcountdown.com to read that book. So I hope this has given you some guidance on how to get started in your first 90 days. And I encourage you to reach out if you have questions or if you ever want to brainstorm ideas. If you're a new CIO and you're trying to figure out how to get settled in your role, I've worked with and consulted to many CIOs throughout the world. In fact, there's been hundreds of them I've consulted to over the years. I'd be happy to chat with you and brainstorm ideas on what it might take to make you successful in your CIO role, as well as what it will take to make your organization successful in their digital transformation journey. So I've included my contact information below in the description field of this video, so be sure to reach out if you have questions. I'd be happy to help and be a sounding board for you as you get started. So I hope you found this information useful and hope you have a great day. When a new CIO takes their new role, there's let me do that again. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEI. I'm not a CIO. So one of the most important things that I think is to do. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CIO. Oh my God. I keep wanting to say CIO now.